There you go.
All right, Pete's out, but he'll be back in a sec. So, okay, so let's talk about state entered vendors. Let me log in. This is how the Kia and team. Try to log in with the right person this time. All right, and instead of having to run the report daily to find out who registered, you can come here. You can either look and it'll show the list of
Rich, you
who's
need to share
registered.
your screen, buddy.
Oh. I didn't share my screen. Oh, I logged out of the one browser. Let's see. There we go. Sorry about that. All right. Glad you said something. I would have gone pretty far without. Okay. So here, as I logged in on the admin side, here there's a place for registrations. You can see all the registrations that are still in registration status, and this is because your team turns them around pretty quickly. It's pretty small here, but at least it'll show you what's still pending. And to create state entered vendor, you'll see here, it looks pretty similar to what we had before. And once you select which, we'll make them SSN 5 supplier. Yes, I can find them. Name, doing business as, year founded, organization type. Say it's an individual. I'll say they love real estate. So charge cards here. You can enter the SWAM information. Now, this is something that obviously you'll verify.
Yeah, we'll verify.
Right.
The report that we run, the SBSD.
Right,
report, if
SBSD.
we have to add SWAM certification, we can add it there.
Right.
But we still have to go in and approve it.
Right.
So if y'all are adding the SBSD certification to a state entered,
If it's,
I guess, and maybe this is a bigger policy discussion because we have set asides for small and micro. If it's state entered, they're not accepting the Commonwealth's terms and conditions. They're not accepting the MOA. They're not accepting fees. Is that a bigger discussion that we have to say that we don't include SWAM information?
Yeah, I don't believe that information comes over on the report now. The accounts that we add the SWAM certification information to, they're usually self-registered. I
Right.
haven't seen them see. So we have to have-
That might need to be a bigger or policy type discussion that any state entered don't
Don't
get SBSD information included.
Yes.
okay.
Does the SBSD check on all the accounts that's registered?
Mhm.
Okay, so you pick it up, then type
They'll
in
run
the
it,
number,
Yeah,
matches SBSD.
but we can verify that in just a second. So let's. Because we're gonna want to contact them potentially. Jeez. And you'll see that notify when solicitation is created is already set to no and it's read only. So there's no option to contact any information supply hierarchy. Don't think you'll do a lot.
Is that driven based off of the account type state entered?
Yes, yeah. Again,
So to Lakia's comment, or maybe to Rich's, the SBSD check runs against tax ID, and if what I heard, does it then update the system automatically if the tax
pull it
ID has an SBSD?
Mhm.
Is there a way to block that for state entered? Or is that a bigger policy? That might be a bigger policy discussion if an SBSD registered vendor with DSBSD is a small or a micro, but they refuse to register an EVA and somebody sets them up as a state entered, agencies can potentially award to the micro because of the micro or the small set aside but they're not even registered and the agency's paying higher fees as a result. So that might be that to me is an issue
Yeah, it is.
if the system's doing that.
Yeah, and I started the onboard
Okay.
just to see, just to verify. It does make that call. All right, and here, things look the same, except for the memorandum of agreement. You can see SEV.
Not
It's just said it not
yeah.
accepted and it's blank. There is no MOA history to
Yeah.
be seen, so there's no button to even verify. So here for this one, I'm just going to approve and then I will show on a rec, or first, let me activate this and then in here, if I would have made a comment, you can have refute comments are here. This is for the Kia's team. Does anybody have any questions about just the state enter vendor process besides the SBSD part?
So is it only the vendor support team that enters that, or is there the ability for buyers out at
Yep.
agencies?
The state enter.
Uh-huh.
Vendor support, we don't enter state enter. You know, we
Yeah.
just verify.
So
So
the-
it's the agency.
So the agencies will still submit it and then it queues up to you guys to
Right.
review.
Yep.
Okay. Because right now we have some of our state entered vendors that have like the buyer emails and knowing that using the same email is gonna be an issue. Are we giving the field guidance on how to state enter? And currently the access to create state entered is limited. You have to have a certain role or permission.
Yes.
So is that still driven by a role or permission in new EVA, or is that wide open for anybody?
No, you'd still have to have a set profile to be able to create state enter.
Okay.
Is there any way that they can, that an email that is coming, if I write an email coming from an agency or an institution, that can be rejected, that way they cannot put that email there?
Well,
And
It's
the
not-
access that.
system will be
rejected.
smart enough to
To
say that the
duplicate.
email's already in use. If
There'll be a duplicate.
it'll be a duplicate.
But let's
the
run
limit
through the
error.
requisition part and let's just make
Okay.
sure. So. Should create. But any other questions about the state enter vendor process? Okay. All right, so here I'm going to create a requisition and then create a state enter vendor from it. And then I'll show you, actually, let me do this. You log out and log back in as a requisitioner and then you can see, because my idea will be able to do a lot more. So
getting to create the state entered, sorry to back up, you went into an admin.
As an
And so
admin,
that's
yes,
how, based on that role or permission, they would go to the right place to
Right.
set that up.
good. Nobody just wants to be a requisitioner. Just- You start filling out the header real quick. And save. I think everybody here knows by now you need to save to start. Kicks things off. Yeah, right. Okay. So here, information, comments. Add a new line. Add description, our quantity, our unit price. And then let me expand this. Let me save it. Oh, there's the Supplier. I know. And Supplier can look, type ahead and see if the supplier's in here. If they're not, there's click see all, and then you can come here and this is where you can create your supplier from here. So you'll see that the page is similar.
While you're typing, Rich, when they do this from a requisition, it still has to go to Lakia's
Lakia's
team to approve.
And
So that
then-
requisition is still kind of in process or on hold
Exactly.
until that
Yes,
happens.
yeah, you
Okay.
can't move forward until that vendor's been activated. So
The statement is in their brand daily, so we do receive all the statement equipments that are registered. Each day we go and verify.
And that's the check your team is doing.
and then we have to add the address. Way. Richmond. And you'll see the blocking error. So the supplier is not available for purchasing. So here, let's log out of here. Now I'm going to log back in as my buyer or my admin.
Mhm.
I can either search by, let's see, account type, state entered, or I can, it's just last in, the first in, last out. So here, see it's in registration. And then his team can start onboarding. If everything looks okay, then they can go through to make the call. Just make sure everything's in there.
Hey, Rich, can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah, sure.
So for the training purposes for like this stuff, I'm not, I don't recall seeing this in any of the assets that we had, how the community would create this, like the buyer, not the vendors. Is there some type of guide or something for training on how to do this?
Yes, sorry, I can jump in.
Okay, I looked on the QRGs, but I didn't see it out there. So that's why I was asking before.
Yeah, no, not a problem. It's a PDF that's part of the learning journey, but what I can do if you think it, people want to basically be able to access it from the training site, is I can add it to that QRGs list. But it's basically called, I think it's requesting a state entered vendor, because we changed it from creating, but it does take them through the steps, and I'll send it to you now.
Okay, and what asset is that? Because I looked at the vendor support, but is there, what, do you remember what asset it's in?
Don't remember.
Or is it not in the asset and maybe just like the document, I guess?
I think it's just a document. Let
Okay.
me see what the name of it is. It used to be called creating a supplier, and now it's, I think, called requesting a supplier.
Okay. You don't need to look now. If it's just a document, it's cool. If we can, yeah. I was just wondering if it was going to be posted on those QRG tabs.
I can definitely add it there.
Okay,
That's a good
perfect.
idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, okay. So state enter vendor is active. Let's go back and make sure that we can see that it's updated. Man. And there it goes. Oh, that's over here. Is this one? Okay, you see, and you can see now that there's a non-catalog requisition is informational, and then okay. And then the requisition's been submitted and ordered. Does anybody have any questions about that process? So any requisition where a state enter vendor is added, it'll still have to go through Lakia's team to approve first before they can complete the requisition. So
Rich, when the supplier, the state entered vendor, the state entered supplier is approved, is there any notice that goes out to say to the, because, so this was an inline, right? I started a rec. My
Right.
supplier wasn't registered. I was compelled to register them as a state entered vendor. They get
Right.
approved as a state entered vendor. How do I know I can go back in and submit for approval?
right. Let me check I'm not sure. You might have, what's that? Yeah, that's
But it usually sends an email to the buyer, whoever creates.
right.
paging.
Yeah, it's just, I wasn't sure if there was turned back on yet, but a notification should go back out that it was approved.
Oh, great,
Let me just
great. I
look.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
And I know, and for everybody in the room, I think Lakia said it, but everybody online too. Emails are not turned on in our current environments outside of password reset. But I think, Rich, are you going to into the area? The emails are logged. So that's
Yeah.
what Rich.
so
I'm
the
pretty
EVA
sure is
supplier
giving away before.
activation. Right. So it was approved and it did go back to Pranav's email or
That's
that
great.
ID that was logged in as. So yes, a notification.
That
does
is
go out.
really good news.
Yep.
So, good. Thank you for confirming.
Sure. So any questions about that? Notifications in general.
So this notification you said was for the state enter. Do the self-registered also get a similar notification and can we, no?
That comes out of Alt-0, so that would be really the way you would know is if they got notified, are they created in Alt-0? So you would come to the user sync cockpit if and it was created on, I don't know if anybody's been creating what we've been. So, and no, mine's the latest user. So this would be unchecked if it hadn't gone out yet. Like I said, in our test environments, it runs every hour. In production, I believe it's supposed to be 10 minutes. So the supplier will get the notification. So, and then you can come here and, verify if they say I didn't get one or, check your, after you go through the whole spam junk, you can come here and check to see if it's gone out or not. So to the email that they have given you. So. Overall, any questions? I don't have a whole lot more. And Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, have we covered?
So I want to ask about.
Yeah.
Unregistered or ad hoc, because in one of the screens, I saw that as either with in the search to search for an ad hoc supplier, browse supplier.
Yeah, there's
And the reinstatement.
unregistered search.
So is this an admin account or is this?
This is admin. Just, yeah, but a supplier's not going to be able to set anything to unregistered. So
And a
it's
buyer.
a buyer won't be able.
How are the ad hocs or the unregistered? Are they stored like state entered or?
Let's go and take a look.
So I might be able to jump in and answer that one, Jan.
Okay.
So Rich is in system tests.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure how that vendor ended up being considered unregistered.
Right.
The process we have for a true ad hoc vendor, unregistered vendor, is only through the confirming order process on a requisition. So when you're doing a requisition, you have the option to say what type of requisition it is. It can only be done through a confirming order. You are checking a checkbox. And Rich, this is on the agenda for you to show this. And then you are basically entering just the supplier name, and within the supplier area, there is an unregistered vendor that's allowing us to capture that information. From a billing perspective, I don't know that Joel is on this meeting. All right, he did not jump on when I said his name. I'm pretty sure he's been walked through that process, him and Parveen, and how we can tell the difference, from an ordering perspective. But the short answer as far, the short answer is unregistered vendors are not being captured in our supplier management area. You don't capture unregistered vendor data anywhere. Now, a PO will be marked for billing purposes as having an unregistered vendor, but the supplier data itself is not captured. And that's quite honestly exactly what we're doing today.
Right.
In VSS, you see state entered and self-registered. So it's
Right.
kind of the same process from that perspective.
So if somebody does a monthly confirming order, they have to enter in that ad hoc vendor each time they're doing a confirming order, unless they want to go through the additional step of putting them in as a state entered.
Yes, correct. Correct. Which, certainly that unregistered is the worst option, state entered the next worst option, and then the best is, to do a self-registration. So while Rich is showing, well, let's let Rich go through. So Rich is creating a rec, and he's going to show us what that, and remember, you're only doing this through a confirming order. And this is a messaging change for us too. So Reba's a little bit different, right? You are able to go in right now, and for the folks that know, if you can't find your supplier, you hit new and you key in the information, you go on about your life. And it can be through a standard order. The change for us, non-registered, unregistered vendors in our world, the message from our point is you're doing self or state. And it really should only be confirming that you're ever going in and doing an ad hoc. Because if you're doing an order that the supplier is unaware of, where the PO is the first thing they're getting, the PO is the actual contract, you need to be keying in that information, via hopefully self, and, worst case scenario that you're doing it on behalf of, from a state enter perspective. So sorry, Rich, go ahead. So Rich has gone into the line, and at the supplier area, when you scroll, and he's getting the quantity and all that fun
There it
stuff.
is.
When you scroll down, there is a new checkbox that says unable to register supplier. That is only available when the requisition type is confirming.
Okay.
And then you are, and sorry, Rich, it's the,
Oh, keep going.
We're doing like a tag team demo
Yeah.
here all of a sudden. When he keys in the supplier name, that data gets captured with the PO, but it is not going into the supplier data.
Okay.
So that's the difference. And Rich, I don't know, in system test, you had some unregistered guys in there. There is a conversion process behind the scenes. There is a unregistered vendor record that allows us to do this process, but it's one record, and there's a part of conversion and part of the environment set up. CGI is setting that up for us to allow us to do this process. But there's no ability for anybody on our teams, anybody in the field, to come in and key in a full supplier profile and mark it as unregistered. That's just not possible.
And it'll give you the warning that it's selected. Oh. Reference. Mess something up with putting the amount.
Yeah, leave them out blank and just set 100% there. It's
Yeah.
thinking you're trying to do a split. There you go. Just leave them out. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
There you go. You can see Rich
All
is a supplier expert, not necessarily a.
Keep talking, Shane. Keep going through it. So, okay.
So
but
that
the
is, I
100
mean,
makes
that is
sense.
the ad hoc process. Again, I think it's really important to key in. Number one, just to ease any concerns, when we ran data on who was doing non-registered suppliers, it's actually pretty low numbers overall from a global standpoint, and it tends to be very concentrated in the university segment when we looked at this. Particularly a handful of universities. I don't need to name them, but those of you that dig around in the data know who they are. They're very aware of this, how you do an unregistered supplier, particularly the ones that were super interested in that. But, if anybody asks, it's a confirming order. And really is because you can now do the inline state entered vendor, somebody out in the field who's doing requisitioning, if we so choose, has the ability to do that state entered vendor inline while they're doing the requisition. So it's just a little bit of a change and just trying to get our supplier data a little bit better.
And that's with the correct role or permission that they can do it in line. Not everybody can do it in line, correct?
I'm not sure what role or permission outside of requisitioner is different there.
Right.
Quite honestly.
I'm in as my admin who can do everything. So I can look at that and just see.
So jogging back based on my agenda that I laid out, and I didn't know if we would need the full time. I booked a lot of time this morning. And I'm going to roll through the agenda, just kind of verbally go through it to make sure we've covered everything. So we talked about supplier self-registration from the supplier side. Rich went through the steps on how a supplier registers, and he showed the activation process from the COVA side, from the admin side, the Commonwealth side. Some other key topics that we wanted to cover today, showing the MOA acceptance area, and you guys had some questions and things around that. And then showing where the W-9s are loaded, attached, and where to go find them and approve them, because we kind of do a double approval process now, right? We approve the supplier account. If they load a W-9, once we pull that information and run the IRS, we can approve the W-9 as well. And I think that's really good because we have problems with vendors not signing their W-9s and not filling them out properly. So we can, leave them rejected. You screwed up. You gave me a bad W-9. That happens. Moving into another area here, we looked at, how you add a location. I know there's a little bit of nuance to that, and going through the steps on how to do that. We shifted into state entered supplier registration. You can do it in two areas, via the browse suppliers, where you can do it, if you have access to supplier and you can create a supplier through that method, and also inline via requisition creation, and then of course the activation process is very similar. The MOA acceptance for that area, and then it's not accepted and what that looks like. And then where the W-9s are loaded. Did we go through, I'll have to apologize, how to switch from state to self?
No.
That is one area that I just hit on that we could go through. So while Rich gets us keyed up to that, he's going to find a state entered vendor for us. We looked at the supplier account maintenance process, both from the supplier side and from the COVA side. And then key areas, name changes, tax ID, address update, contact updates, W-9s. And then the ad hoc supplier process. So I think I've got one more. So let's do, Rich, how do you switch from state to self?
That is request for information change, and that is with updating the MOA. And I will show it here.
So this is where a vendor would put the request in
they want to take over the
To
account.
switch, to
or-
take over the account.
And send it to you all for approval.
It goes directly to me.
Yeah,
Just like a real estate.
Good
So
comment.
here.
So how do they get access to the state entered account to then capture this? Or is this a buyer?
This is the admin side.
This is the admin
Yeah,
side
Yeah,
doing it.
this is
Okay.
them, they've requested.
So they've
and then-
done it on paper on one of our forms on the customer care help.
Right.
And send the
Okay.
request, and that goes to Margaret first to approve, and then it's sent to us once she's approved.
And so what's captured in the MOA acceptance?
So we'll go in and accept the MOA, and once we update the account and save it, we'll change the account to self-registered. We'll add the contact of the person that's requesting it and send them the email to log into the account. Once they log into the account, they have to accept the MOA, and it'll show that they accepted the MOA.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
If they
That's a
can't go
good
further,
description.
they can't- If they don't accept the MOA, they can't log into the account.
Okay.
And then I showed that it was state entered now that we've approved. Now it's self-registered. Then, as Lakia said, they'll send the email to log in and then they'll be able to. Because here it'll be Lakia's group
show
that'll
them,
have
right.
there, and then it'll show the MOA history that it was.
So then the supplier will log in and the MOA history will switch to the supplier contact.
Right, so if you go ahead and add a contact,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, do it.
you go ahead and add a contact.
Or can I just send it to this person to log in? Is that gonna
If
be,
they don't already have one,
yeah, it's,
and then just go to the supplier, so you know, the MOA process.
yeah, I don't think the timing is gonna be great for that, because it's the job doesn't run for another 38 minutes, so. Let's see if I can. How to show that. Let's see. And here, well, if they were able to log in, they would be able to do the request information change from here.
So then does the MOA history show first the vendor support team person and then the supplier that has then accepted the MOA to show both? Or
Yeah, once
does
we
it,
switch the accounts to self-registered, we'll click accept MOA, and it shows that we accepted the MOA.
Right.
And once we add the contact information and send the email for them to log in, the vendor logs into the account and the MOA shows up on the first screen. before they
Right.
can get going
Right.
further.
So your first login, and that's what she was talking about, a contact. but,
right,
When they get, it'll just come to the MOA page, they'll have to accept and before they can even move forward, so. And then the MOA history.
Yeah, I think the suppliers that you logged into already handle.
Yeah, I think you did too, so I think if I can, what I'll do is I'll try to find one MOA history and then I can send it out to the invite, but it may take a few minutes. And
While
that-
we're on the MOA, I think Shane had a question in reference to if a user on the, that accepted the MOA is changed or removed, what happens?
To the MOA or to the user, because the MOA will stay with who accepted. The MOA won't change.
Yeah, the question is
You want-
specific to, so like if you're on the, if the user that accepted the MOA is changed or removed, what happens, right? Isn't that what we're asking?
yes,
Yeah.
so like if Shane accepts the MOA, he retires, a new contact is added. The MOA history still shows Shane accepted it. Does it force the new contact to accept the MOA?
It'll accept the MOA, but it won't overwrite the MOA, the MOA.
Upon
but-
login, they'll have to accept the
Supplier
MOA.
that logs into the account, the MOA comes up. for them to accept before they log in.
So does the history update and then add them as
So what
the,
happens if the?
So I think in the history it'll show up, but I'll verify if it,
We can
on the
never-
page it shows up. I'm not,
Stop at that point.
Yeah, it shows.
because if it's already been accepted, I don't know if,
The person
Wouldn't-
accepted it will be-
right,
Okay,
because you
but in the
deactivate
Dan
that.
Scenario.
but if
Rick
Shane
retires,
if Shane's
Shane
left,
retires, somebody else comes in, that's a new contact.
if
And
they
when
don't
first
accept,
log in, it requires them to accept the MOA. is what
Yeah.
you're saying, Right?
Right.
so is that every new contact
Every new contact.
has the MOA? Okay.
That's
And if they don't, then just basically they can't go forward.
right.
Right.
Right. It's just like the
account-
registration.
The account is in suspension because until they accept the
So
MOA.
it's up to how it is.
Yeah, there's nobody gonna be able to log in.
Can't go forward or that.
No, the account is already active. The account is active. The
Yeah,
bid,
but-
bidder can't
Okay,
go.
so
But if Shane's gone,
Shane's
They
gone.
can't log
Somebody
in.
needs to respond to a bid. Somebody has to go through
They'll
the
reach out
steps.
so that's why I was asking.
They'll
about
reach
Yeah.
out to them.
So what will that do?
The first, we'll do that, the verification. If
Right.
the person is no longer with the company, then the email will be sent over to the support. We'll add that person as a contact and send them the email to them.
And when they log in, they'll be prompted to accept the MOA.
yes.
And as long as they accept the MOA, they move forward. If they don't, it's still in kind of this suspended state where nobody
Limbo-ish,
can
yeah.
do anything.
Right.
All right, good discussion. You know, guys, UAT and training are out there.
Right.
You know, absolutely a good scenario. If you guys want to see it, test it, you know, run through it. Write it down, exactly what you guys talked about, register a supplier with a contact, have that contact, deactivated, set up a new contact, have that contact log in and, see all that. You'll see the acceptance and, we've got time. It's only September 13th. That's a scenario that you guys could run through if you want to see it. And Lakia, thank you, Lakia. Lakia sounds very confident that she understands the steps. So she could help you guys through that. If you get caught up or have any questions about that. One more thing I had on the agenda, Rich, I think it's a quick one. And again, this isn't about how we initiate a reinstatement process, but we have a vendor who's in a deactivated status of any type. Let's say they were in non-payment, they were discontinued, whatever it is. What are the steps, functional steps, to set them back to an active status?
All right, let me pull up where's account type status. There's what I'm looking for. Let's say there. And in system tests, we don't have that many, but this is a self-registered that is discontinued.
So the reinstatement process.
Right.
This is on hold side. This is where we do this.
The vendor support.
Right.
admin team. Yeah.
This one. It's like, yeah, it needs to do it through a change request, and then there's a drop down for status. Let me try to find a good vendor to do that with. These are all early vendors, so they may have been really more. Okay, here we go. So here, this is a vendor in discontinued status. I didn't. Request for information change. And then there's two options. There's general information, but there's change supplier status. And under okay, and then we come to new status. Got to keep these things interesting. We're 2 hours in, All right, this is an early vendor, so it's Bark, anything else? Status is active. Let's go verify that. Oh, approve, sorry. Yeah, I was covered up by the. All right. And then you can see Supplier's active. So,
So they're active in the system. Do they then get an email that requires,
We send them an email, welcome back to email.
right? And do they have to
That's the
re-accept the
agreement.
MOA,
process.
or have they submitted the form?
They submit the form, but they can't request it in the system now.
Right.
They have to submit the form to issue check. Yes. The
And
form
so,
is-
so the form that they filled out, is that now attached to the account? Or how does, so where do we see the MOA acceptance? Since the vendor support team is reinstating them and taking them from a discontinued to an active.
Well, it has the previous.
it still has the MOA history from when they originally accepted.
Oh, I thought it was. So if it's the same person, well, I guess we have to rethink it. If it's a new person coming in to
Reactivate.
reactivate the account, we have to add them as a contact and send them the email to log into the account so that they can accept them.
But if it is the same person,
Right.
if we're capturing it through a form, is that form being attached?
Well, we can. attach
Yeah,
it.
we have
We have
the-
option to
the
attach.
area
I think
for
we
it.
need, because we need to know the history of when they were reinstated and who accepted the MOA at that time.
Let me
Collection.
re-ask the question. So if was previously active and then I was moved to discontinued. And I get if I add a new contact, because that's the same process we talked about before. So if I'm reactivating a discontinued account, but I'm a new contact, the first time I log in, I'm going to be asked to accept the MOA. So that's going to give you history. But restating the question, I was an active account. I moved to discontinued. I changed my mind and I want to be reactivated and I'm the same contact. When I log back in, will I be asked to do the MOA even though I'm the same contact?
No, I don't think it
Okay.
will.
All right. Well, so I will
I'll-
throw this out to Lakia. I think let's test that. So register a vendor, put a contact in, fully activate them, then discontinue them. Then reactivate them and try to log in with the same contact and see what happens with the MOA. Because that'll tell us in our business process if the same contact doesn't cause me to re-accept the MOA, then, whoever, I think it was Jan, maybe, somebody said, then we're going to need to get that form and attach it.
Right.
That we're going to have to add that in as a business process. So good catch, but it's worth testing, that sometimes that's funny when you log back in the way the system's like, oh, you've been deactivated. Now you're active. You need to do this again. So I just want to confirm that.
Okay.
And with that being said, that is the end of what I had what we had. There was a group effort to create this agenda. What we had from a group effort to create this agenda. So that doesn't mean we can't keep taking questions, but from a demo perspective, I am going to